All right, let's shake it up. It's time for the Magic 8 Ball series. Welcome to Fantasy Flyer episode 46. Hey Taylor, how you doing? Been a while. Been a while.
It has, yeah. We pushed the episode a little bit, so it's been like a week and a half since we've done the last one. But man, oh man, this is a jam-packed show.
Did we
I'm
wait until the perfect day? It is Friday
yeah,
at
really.
9:30. About 76,000 things happened today, which we'll talk about a little bit. Wow, I don't know if it would have been this packed on Wednesday to answer your question. We were
Yeah.
we were going to do the show on Wednesday, and Taylor thought it was Wednesday, and I was like, "Oh wait, we can't do Wednesday because you said you got to do Friday. You had something going on." And he goes, "No, I thought we were doing Wednesday." And so we were like, "All right, so we'll settle on Friday." Um, so here we are. It is Friday, March 10th. When we're recording this, this will probably come out on either Sunday or Monday. Haven't decided yet. Part one of the Magic 8 Ball series. We're going to go over all of the, well, you know what? We'll get into the Magic 8 Ball in a second. Let's start off with the news because we haven't had a chunky nine segment in a while. The news, injury notes, etc. This is a lot of notes, a lot of etc., a lot of news, no injuries, which is good. Unless you want to talk about Brock Purdy. He got surgery today. Good for him. Quick and speedy recovery to Brock. But let's start off with the nine segment. Taylor, go ahead. We'll dance through some of the fun stuff. A lot of the stuff we're actually going to talk about later on in the episode. But go ahead and start us off with some news. And there's a lot of it.
Yeah. So, the reason things have been moving lately is because next Wednesday is the quote unquote start of the season. There's probably a better NFL terminology that they have around that, but anyways, that's when certain things have to happen in terms of franchise tags. That's already happened, but like some of these cap casualties and free agent signings, all that stuff has to be decided. Not free agent signings, but that stuff has to be decided before the quote unquote season starts next Wednesday.
Start of the new league year is what you were looking.
League year. Thank you. Anywho, so the big thing of note that literally happened this afternoon. The Bears and the Panthers come to an agreement on a trade for that number one pick. I won't go into the exacts, but it is a haul for the Bears. The Panthers get the number one pick, and they give away DJ Moore and a handful of number one picks and number two picks, and it's a lot. So the Bears, I think that's the perfect move for them. And the Panthers, I think they're giving up a bit much, but um, I mean, they could be getting a franchise quarterback, so
We hope
yeah,
that
they'll
would be the
they'll
idea.
make the rest work, I guess. I don't know what they're gonna do for wide receivers now, but anyways,
Speaking of,
um, good.
I said speaking of wide receivers, I was leading
Yeah,
you into your next note.
yes. Speaking of Robert Woods signing with the Texans, so we were talking about this a little bit before the show, but they obviously have Nico Collins, and I don't remember besides their top pick what they have, but I think they have a decent amount of picks, so they could snag like a wide receiver in the second or third round. And obviously there's been the like news about Cooks wanting to leave, so maybe this is sort of shoring up that wide receiver core for the inevitable potential trade of Brandon Cooks. Um, Tua, his fifth-year option was exercised by the Dolphins. The Vikings release Adam Thielen, which we talked about. That makes complete sense. He is a 33-year-old wide receiver. He'll probably get
Oh,
like over yeah, probably get like a 1 year deal somewhere, maybe a 2 year. I think 1 year is probably what people would go after for such an older receiver, but he's still got some juice in him. So Lamar Jackson, still a lot of weirdness going on with him, but he has been franchise tagged, but it is non-exclusive, which means that other teams can reach out and offer him deals, but the Ravens have the option to counter it essentially. Um, I, I mean, I don't want to. there's been a lot of talk around this. Like, are the owners talking amongst themselves, colluding so that we don't see another Deshaun Watson deal that just really blows up the QB market? I
Hoping
mean,
he
a lot.
plays bad for one more, or plays
Yeah,
bad this season
exactly.
and isn't worth 40 million. Daniel Jones getting 40 million, which is your next. I mean, it's your next note. So I'll just
Hmm.
it kind of combined the two.
Yeah,
Jones getting 4 years at 160 million. It's 40 million a year. He has incentives to make it 40 some 43, 46 million after incentives. That already is on the edge of resetting the market.
yeah,
So
yeah. I don't think that Daniel Jones is worth that, but good for him. I mean, the team obviously made it to the playoffs with him, and they should hopefully get better with this draft and the market. So we'll see. I mean, they also franchise tag Saquon Barkley, so the core of the team is coming back. I mean, they weren't going to get a QB in this draft unless they did anything. So I think it made sense that they bring Jones back. I don't like this deal for them, but I guess I wish them the best of luck. But yeah, the Jackson stuff a little weird because quote unquote teams are saying they're not interested in him, but that can't be true by any means. So we'll see how that plays out. I don't. We'll leave it at that. Geno Smith signs a 3-year deal, 105 million. Good for him. That's awesome. I think that's a perfect deal for both sides. I hope that the next 3 years are good for him because uh, Seattle, I mean, they could make it to the playoffs this year. Um, Derek Carr, I actually didn't get the exact details on this, but it's more or less official that he's signing with the Saints, right? He actually
yes,
signed the deal?
30. It's 35 million a year.
See, Carr signing 35 million and
Did I have that?
Jones 40 million.
Maybe it's 40. It might be 40. I might be wrong,
Okay.
but it's not more than Daniel Jones.
Yeah, okay. Anyways, Josh Jacobs was franchise tagged and
Smart.
yeah, very smart. Calvin Ridley was reinstated for the Jags. So, I think that's awesome for them. I mean, they had a pretty good end of the season. I mean, overall, they had a pretty decent season. Lawrence is looking good. They have some decent receivers.
They also
Zay
franchise tagged Evan Ingram,
Evan Ingram. That's right. Yeah.
so their
So
entire
yeah,
offense is set.
yeah. Receiving wise, that's awesome. Kirk, Ridley, Ingram, and Zay Jones. Right. That's his name.
Hmm.
A guy that I had drafted in our dynasty league and just did not pan out until finally, like the past couple of years, he's actually started to do some stuff.
And now he's on your boys' team.
Oh, you have him? Nice.
Yeah, it was a $1 contract.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll take that. It'll be $4 after arbitration, but we'll live with that. All right. A lot of news, but again, we're going to touch on a little bit more in depth because we have a lot to cover. So we're going to get going into the Magic Eight Ball. Magic Eight Ball is here. We talked about it until January. This is the rebuilding portion. It's a four-part, two parts in each episode series, bringing together the offseason in a brand new way. It's not fantasy based, although it will be mentioned for sure. Rather, it's an entire report card for how each team can get to 100%. Will that happen? Absolutely not. Doesn't work that way. If every team was at 100%, every team would be 8-8 or 9-8 or 8-9, and it would be really annoying. Um, the problems that can prevent that are aplenty from salary cap, draft capital, current contracts, and beyond. So we're going to kick off part one with me. I have the NFC teams in both episodes. Taylor will have the AFC teams. This time, I'm looking at the Cowboys, Eagles, Commanders, Giants, Lions, Bears, Vikings, and Packers. The
Oh
NFC North
my.
and the East. Yes, that's right. Um, and Taylor will have the AFC North and the AFC East, which are Browns, Bengals, Steelers, you should know your list more than better.
Ravens.
Ravens, and then Jets, Bills, Patriots, Dolphins.
Yep.
So we're gonna try and cover all of that in this episode, and we got a lot to go. So we're gonna get going. I will start off with the NFC East. I will start off with my team, the Cowboys. Do I know what they're gonna do? Absolutely not. They're up to $12.3 million. They restructured the contracts of the guard Zach Martin and of quarterback Dak Prescott today to create a truckload of free cap space. Um, Tyron Smith has been reported that they're trying to work out a deal to bring him back. The only other real cap casualty that is a big note is Ezekiel Elliott. who could save $5 million on a cap cut. Jaron Curse could save them another 5 million. Jordan Lewis could save them another 5 million. Oso Digizua and Malik Hooker could save them a total of $4 to $5 million combined if they really wanted to. My gut tells me they will try and keep Lewis, Osa, and Malik Hooker at least. Jaron Curse also did very well last year, so I don't think they're going to go nuts, especially for the free agent market. If you're looking to improve it, I mean, they have linebacker needs and wide receiver, but releasing somebody in the secondary where you already have holes to fill one of those is kind of moot. Cowboys just picked up extra. They got compensation picks yesterday, day before, Wednesday, Thursday, one of the days. They got 2 5th-round picks and a 6th-round pick to add in. They had the 26th overall, the 58th overall, the 90th overall, 2 5th-rounders, 4 6th-rounders, and 2 7th-rounders. 3 6th-rounders and 2 7th-rounders. There we go. Math was rough. Cowboys have big holes to fill with little cap. So the way I'm looking at this is if you create cap, you can't do it without creating other holes, which means you have to use the draft for this. And it's pretty straightforward. I have their trade assets to go along with draft picks. Their trade assets, there really isn't anything juicy. Tyron Smith is in the seniority of his career. Zeke has miles on him and isn't going to gain much more than compensatory draft capital if anyone would even trade for him, which I don't think would happen. So yeah, main way of retooling for me is the draft. First round pick is probably best spent on the secondary. I don't think you got a hole there. Anthony Brown is a free agent. He is their cornerback who had an Achilles injury in the middle of the season and missed the last, I think, 4 or 5 games in the couple games in the preseason or postseason, excuse me. Wide receivers you can find good at depth. I don't see why you would go with anything beyond a secondary in the first round or a linebacker. It's defense for sure in the first round. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, how are you feeling about Gallup? You think obviously he
This
didn't
team
get a
needs a
full,
wide receiver. I will say
yeah.
that. I think
So,
Gallup is perfectly fine as a 3. I am putting him on a capability level, not a performance level. Note the difference. On a
mm,
capability level, I'm putting him there with at like in the Adam Thielen realm. He's a little younger. I know he's contract, blah blah blah. Capability wise, it could there. Performance wise, it doesn't seem to get there. And same thing with Thielen most times, right? Like Thielen isn't, Thielen being a free agent, that's something that you have to look at. Justin Jefferson's the big number one, and then Thielen sneaks up on you.
yeah. Yeah.
So my take on that is I would see a wide receiver at pick 58. Like I put in my notes here if Keyshawn Boutte drops to them,
Yeah,
fine.
which spoilers, I also had something like that for one of my teams because he didn't grade well in the combine and he obviously had the injuries. I don't know if he has some off-field issues, but it seems like maybe he's not the most mature, which all these guys are super young and not mature, but relatively speaking. So it seems like his draft capital is dropping a little bit.
I I mean we'll see where he's gonna go. I think he's gonna go before the middle of the third. So it
Yeah.
lines up with the Cowboys
I,
at
yeah, I
that
don't
point, or up 40 other teams.
somebody's going to
40
take a
other
chance on him for sure. Yeah.
should, and they should. I
Yeah.
have the Cowboys going secondary. Keely Ringo, Antonio Johnson, safety or cornerback, maybe Cam Smith if he's going to be there at the end of the round, end of first round. Um, like I said, wide receiver at 58 or at 90. You don't have to take him in the second round. Third rounders can be perfectly fine as well. Dallas locked up Tony Pollard with the franchise tag. Free agent target from me, Noah Brown. I don't mind bringing him back. He's not going to be $1 million. You have the cap to do it now. Okay. Mike Hughes, who a cornerback for Detroit, is a free agent this year. I like what he might be able to bring. He's in his late 20s, 27, 28. That's not even really late. But he could be a nice piece. And my for the Cowboys record is 11-6. I have them winning the NFC East. And I know that sounds super favored because I'm a Cowboys fan, but all year I said the Cowboys were the best team in the NFC East. So I have to have a little chuck with my name.
Real quick, have you heard? some of the stuff about people mocking Bijan to the Cowboys?
Be a, without if they have Zeke and Pollard, it's a waste.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think it's really like to
I
your
mean, it's
point,
hard to say,
if they're trying to round out the team, that's not where you're gonna go.
right? That doesn't improve you. And all this team needs is some rounding out and some better clutch play,
Yeah.
and the team can go places. It'll be interesting to see how they draw the playbook too. I've heard run the ball more, which means that Zeke will probably be falling to the RB2 role on the team, which is fine. It's
Yeah,
about that time.
he should be the
Um,
RB2 and the goal line back.
there you go. Let it go. Next team, your NFC championship, Philadelphia Eagles. As of 3 hours ago, an hour ago, whatever it is, they have 8.8 million in cap. I think they are roughly done. I don't think there's really much else that they can cut. That includes their draft contracts. Those are kind of factored in. So cap casualties. Quez Watkins is still there. I think Isaac Siumalu is a free agent now. That's an entire 7.5 million that they saved by cutting him. And then there are several backups that could get them 3 or 4 million if they really wanted to gut the team and sign from the practice squad of everybody else come August. But that doesn't wise spots to fill for them: linebacker, cornerback, safety, defensive tackle, defensive end, and edge. If you need me to spell it out for you, it's the defense. Every single show since the season ended, I've said this team will not have the same defense. It is not going to be as close. Not even going to be close.
Although they did just re-sign what
Brandon
do we
Graham.
say, Brandon Graham.
Yes. And
No, they're ignorant. That's ignorant.
it's not as good. Uh, they have the 10th overall pick and the 30th overall pick, 62-94 overall. Then they have a 6th and a 7th rounder. So they have 4 picks realistically to get some good volume on defense here. Eagles have one direction. That's defense. It's not a close. The offense is not the problem. Okay. If Kenneth Gainwell is your RB1, go with it. Boston Scott was decent, if not above decent, most of the year. It all comes down to how this team looks defensively in September, and I'm not thrilled with the ceiling that it could be. Like its ceiling. There's too many high-profile names that are leaving it at free agency, or at very least taking one hell of a pay cut. And I don't see a lot of these players after the season they just had taking pay cuts.
Mm.
The best friend for this team is using the draft picks and hoping that they can resemble defensively the team they were last year. You have a new defensive coordinator who is going to have to use these new players, and that's almost never a recipe for repeated success. Almost. There's no trade assets really for this team. They should not deeply explore moving anybody. Can move up with some of the cap casualty candidates. I'm thinking Les Watkins potentially, but I think for a lot of teams that 2.78 million for his contract, sign somebody and keep the pick. Main way of retooling, obviously it's the draft. Use the first 2 picks. Go defense. Go defense. I got chided out by a comment of somebody saying, "Oh, they can sign defense." No, they can't. They got no money. And next year they got to give all the money in the world to everybody else. So who's already on the team? So unless you want another 1 year and then you're absolutely shot, don't do that. It's gonna be kind of nickel and diming this team. I like targeting Tavon Bryant, who's the defensive tackle free agent. He just played for Cleveland, had 3 sacks on 61% of snaps. He would be cheap in the free agent market. You could get him for probably $3 million a year. Tremaine Edmonds would command the rest of that, the other 4 or 5 million that you have, but would also be a great addition to the linebacker role. Kaiser White is another option to bring him back. He was very solid for the team. If he's opening to returning, I think he'd be a little cheaper than Tremaine Edmonds, which is money's a key. My prediction for this, I mean, the entirety of this comes down to who they draft, right?
Mhm.
This team is trying to get back to, at minimum, the playoffs, right? There's some really good corners in the draft. None that would concern opposing receivers the way that James Bradbury and CJ Gardner Johnson did. Granted, CJ's more of a safety. but and now they've let Darius Slay request a way out for a trade. So it's all secondary here. That news coming today that they're letting Slay walk kind of tells me they're going to go cornerback at 10.
Right.
I think they just know we have to. This is one way we can turn 5, 8, 10 million in cap into 1.5. They won't lead the league in sacks, but they can show potential. They're going to have to grow some rookies. I say take Christian Gonzalez and any best available linebacker in the first. Get another secondary piece in the second or third. A D lineman, whichever one you don't go. Nakobe Dean is going to see the field a lot more than he did last year. Free agent targets, I put in Kaiser White and Tremaine Edmonds. I'll also note Nicholas Morrow is a free agent. Great middle field eyes, came out of Chicago, will be a free agent. I do have them 10-7 and making the wild card. This offense is still too dang good. Let's not discount the offense because the defense isn't going to keep teams to under 30 points, maybe. 25 points. Give them benefit of the doubt. I mean, thoughts on this is what we talked about for 5 episodes now. The Eagles, to get back to this, they need to rebuild the defense. There are some tricks up their sleeve. I don't see any easy way or one that is going to be painless to Eagles fans.
Yeah. I mean, they've actually done a decent job in previous drafts of sort of getting players that they've been developing and should be able to fill in some of these roles. So hopefully it's not going to be the same, obviously. They're not going to have the vets. But I think that they're hoping that'll put them in a position to be, let's say they had an A+ defense. Now they have a B minus defense. Like it's still going to be passable, better than average. I think that they should find a way to get 1 or 2 vets to try to, bring things back and have that solid defense. But there's also, and maybe this, I don't know how many people are thinking this, but there's the thought of like, they have a solid offense. They're putting up points, going almost like a Kansas City route where the defense wasn't amazing, but it actually did kind of turn things around later in the season. But let's say, beginning of the season, Kansas City defense was not great. They were just putting up so many points that teams couldn't match. The Eagles are sort of in that position. And let's say they did snag, which I don't think they should, but I could get behind them snagging Bijan at 10 and just going ham on offense.
That's a slot. I think you're taking a gamble.
Oh yeah.
Because if any injuries creep up, your year is that 10-7 becomes 7-10.
Yeah.
Real quick. So I don't know about that.
And Gainwell showed perfectly fine, even in the playoffs. He had like a 20-point fantasy game. Like,
yeah,
I'd be fine rolling with him because Hurts is so dynamic.
Have to see draft end of April. I mean, there's a lot. Honestly, we can see a lot between now and next week.
Right.
Next team, Commanders. They are up to 16.5 million in cap. Cap casualty candidates: Cameron Curl, Kendall Fuller, 2 cornerbacks. They could save the team roughly 11 million. Charles Leno is a very good left tackle, could save the team 8 million. Logan Thomas can save the team 4.5 million. I don't know if they're gonna. I know they're 16th. They draft 16th. They have 16, 47, 97. And then the standard 4 through 6 rounders and 2 7th rounders. The easiest solution here is to grab the best available player defensively, I'd say, who's not a wide receiver. It's probably going to be a linebacker at 16. O-line needs help. I don't think any of the stellar offensive tackles fall to them at 16. That's just a guess, though. Maybe it does happen. You could theoretically have the Titans at 11 taking an offensive tackle. The plethora of linebackers who are first-round material are there. There's 8 cornerbacks who could rightfully go in the first 45 picks. Even the defensive line is not really the most promising. I know Chase Young is still pretty good. Still some good pieces there, but they need some help on the defensive side of the ball as much as they need it, because it ain't going to come in the offensive side. It's not going to be thrilling unless Sam Howell makes some great leaps and bounds. Trade assets for this team. I see Curtis Samuel as a trade asset. He was very effective last year. It's a selling high type deal, but If you could bring back a mid-tier pick, you can have some more youth in the wide receiver. Be set at wide receiver for 3 to 5 years. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and whoever you draft. Yeah. Cameron Curl, also, while being a cap casualty, he has a $3 million salary. He is a very solid cornerback, especially in zone. Send him. Get a pick. Don't get a pick. Doesn't matter. Send him for anything. Get a ham sandwich back. Save yourself some money. His dead cap's $28,000. A lot better than $3 million. Main way of retooling. I see this as being a free agency team. And that's because of the ways that they have. Logan Thomas should really be gone. I know that sounds a little out there, but at 47 in that second round, you might have a couple good tight end. Sam Laporta could be there. Darnell Washington could be there. A couple really good tight end prospects that'll be a lot cheaper than the $8.2 million you're paying Logan Thomas. But yeah, if you can get to about $30 million available, you can have a good time with this. You can still take a cornerback. You can get a linebacker. You can diversify some of your money into different places. I don't think Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, perfectly fine. It looks like you're rocking with Sam Howell this year. Seems to be the way of the team. They've announced that. So unless they get aggressive and trade up in the draft, find a little bit of money in free agency. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of mediocre, which may be the case anyway, because Sam Howell is going to need a year to grow. My prediction, Washington has less places to fill compared to some of these other teams, Lions, Eagles. I am just cautious about their offseason success. They placed the franchise tag on Darren Payne. The D-line will return for the most part. They need some depth pieces. Linebacker is going to be a focus. I predict they take a linebacker in the draft, let Cole Holcomb walk. He's going to be an expensive piece if you want to bring him back. Sam Howell will be the quarterback, but they're going to, like I said, they're going to be forced to build with him. At cornerback in the free agent market, what about Shaq Griffin? He just got released from the Jaguars. I'll throw that name out. Linebacker for the draft. I mean, you can go Trenton Simpson. You could take more of an edge piece, Miles Murphy, who may be available there. Maybe you take Nolan Smith. He had a great combine. That's a little early. You would probably get to him before anybody else would, which is nice. I have them going 7-10 next year and missing the playoff.
Yeah. You make a lot of good points that I completely agree with in terms of like Logan Thomas, too expensive. He's shown obviously he can be a good tight end, but this is a deep tight end class and they have that 47th pick where I think they could get some value there at tight end. I mean, I've seen even like Musgrave dropping to there. So, but I mean, Washington would be amazing value. I think people are maybe not as much anymore. I think they were underestimating, but after his combine, I think he's jumped up a little bit.
Yeah. I hope.
Yeah, for real. I also love the Curtis Samuel trade. They have two solid wide receivers. They don't really. I mean, he's a great gadget player. They used him very effectively, but I don't think they need him. I do think that maybe at that 97th pick, they should look for some running back. This is there's some solid running backs that are going to drop into the third and fourth round. And I think they should look for something there because Gibson hasn't really panned out. I won't get into that. I feel like he should have been better.
He's the next on my cap casualty list for this team.
Yeah.
He's $3 million in savings. If he could be
Brian Robinson, like, I don't know if the poor guy got hurt. I don't know how much that's played into it, but like he is a decent he's an okay back. They need someone better, I think.
Mamma mia!
He said it.
Anyways, they are like borderline, could make the playoffs, but I think to your point with Sam Howell, which I actually like that. I mean, he dropped to the 5th round. He was supposed to be like a 2nd or 3rd round QB. Anyways, I like this team. I think they have a lot of promise and potential, but they need to, they need to retool a little bit and maybe they sit back a little bit this year so they get some more picks and then next year they kind of go in.
Fair. Next team, Giants. 18.3 million in cap. It will go up to 25.3 after Wednesday. That's when Kenny Golladay leaves. Only cap casualties Xavier McKinney, which would save them about 2 million. I wouldn't go to town on it. They have to fill wide receiver, cornerback, tight end, safety, linebacker, wide receiver, hands down the most needed. You just retooled with $40 million a year Daniel Jones. Was that absolutely a good idea? No, probably not. A lot of Giants fans.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
And then they did it. Draft picks 25, 57, 89. They have 2 fourths, a fifth, 2 sixths, and 3 sevenths, which are, draft 2 kickers and a punter. Trade assets are really only later round draft picks. They're still retooling for like their 7th year in a row. Main way of retooling is free agency and draft. Take your pick. They have draft capital to do what they need to. They need to fill every wide receiver spot. Isaiah Hodgins might be a wide receiver 3 in a total roster. Wan'Dale Robinson is back. I get that. I say you still need 2 wide receivers. I really do. Saquon is franchise tagged. Most concerning threat to Big Blue is how they're going to fill these from where. A vet wide receiver would be great. They aren't going to create any cap space unless they let one of their really good linemen go. Jones kind of forced them into taking 2 spare wide receivers probably in the draft, but if they can find a way to get veteran leadership, go ahead. Giants my prediction for them is that they will find a way to get that wide receiver. They have 18 million. Yay. Adam Thielen, go ahead. Why not? He's a good target out there. Let's just put it that way. Any cornerback would be swell. Anyone from free agency. There's a lot of really good ones. I'm not even going to list them all off. Take Shaq Griffin. William Jackson just got released. I don't know. Anyone. It's going to be a step forward, I would say. Draft target for me, Michael Mayer. I have them at 9 and 8, and I don't have them in the playoffs. So just FYI about that.
How sold are you on that Michael Mayer? Because I think Bellinger is good enough that they could either get a wide receiver or fill. I mean, their defense is pretty solid. So go ahead.
Here's the quick answer to that. There are very small percentages that a cornerback or a safety that you are really looking to spend first round draft capital and a first round contract on are available at 26. Linebacker potentially, but for sure wide receiver and tight.
Yeah.
Wide receiver. Well, I shouldn't even say really for sure wide receiver. For sure tight end. Like there's some good tight end there. Daniel Bellinger is only one of 2, and honestly, long term, not the answer.
Yeah.
He looks good, but look who's around him, or look who was around him. There's no one else to show him up.
Yeah.
He's a good 3 to 4 catch a game, but so is Hodgins, so is Slayton, so is because they don't throw it. Now you're going to have that kind of reintroducing itself by taking on perhaps a Thielen or perhaps any number of wide receivers deeper in the draft.
All right, you've convinced me a little bit, swayed me a little bit more, because I mean, to your point, you didn't come out and say this, but this is not the deepest wide receiver class. Like even the ones at the top are not as talented as players we've seen in the past.
Right.
I'm sure there's obviously going to be people that show up that we didn't expect or that we were unsure about. But anyways, point being, Mayer's the better value at pick 25 than some of the wide receivers that are going to be there.
Yeah, that's my take on it. And assuming Addison, JSN are gone. Who's the other one? Zay Flowers. I think if Zay Flowers is there, you take it instead of Michael Mayer. I think that's just hands down, get it out of the way. Because again, in round 2, you can go back for that tight end because you'll have the option of Washington, Laporta, perhaps Musgrave if he falls to you early 50s. Those are options. You got 5 minutes left. I'm going to go right into the 5th team before we break. I'll do the Packers. Kind of not really dance through it, but there's enough holes and it's pretty straightforward. 16.9 million in cap. They don't have any great cap casualty candidates. Rasul Douglas and John Runyon, cornerback and guard respectively. You could save $8 million there. Actually, I think these guys just went up to 23. They restructured somebody today, and I didn't change it. So take that with a grain of salt. Yep, 23.8. So they're 23.8, not 16.9 million. They have to fill linebacker, safety, tight end, and then last of those would be wide receiver. Draft picks 15, 45, 78, a fourth, 2/5, 3/6, 2/7. Again, it's kind of the later round picks for your assets. You can also make Aaron Jones an asset, but another team taking him would have to take most of the dead cap. So that's fair. My big main way of this team retooling is these first three picks, 15, 45, 78. Defense, tight end to me. Linebacker, safety, tight end. The top three that you need in that order, take them. At 15, you should have a great hand on Miles Murphy. You might have a good line on, he's not a linebacker, but Brian Brzee. There's some good pieces. Trent Simpson, he's going to be there. Take it. Safety, why not? Take a wide receiver at least round 3, if not 4 or 5, and put them behind Dobbs and Watson. Defensively, there's no easy way to make it look good, but the Green Bay defense had a hard time getting teams off the field last year. I wrote this prediction before the news came out this morning that basically Aaron Rodgers is not going to be back for sure. Don't know where that leads, but
Yeah.
Front office kind of came out and said, he's not going to be back.
Jets are quote unquote very optimistic.
Well, they should be because they can. Sure, by all means. Jordan Love will be the cornerback. I don't like, and you'll see I've reflected my record, but I didn't reflect what I wrote. Get a defensive lineman and or linebacker at 15. Take a tight end round 3. Get a safety somewhere in there. Free agency target Jerry Tillery, Michael Brockers, Dante Fowler. Cheap, experienced, fairly experienced, Jerry Tillery being the youngest, but somebody who won't break the bank and will do the job. Okay. You can even splurge on one of them if you want and take a next step up. Get the younger, more efficient model if you want. Nicholas Morrow comes to mind for the linebacker position. Draft targets Miles Murphy. Nope, that's wrong. Miles Murphy, Brian Brzee, Darnell Washington. Safety's the toughest of them. Antonio Johnson isn't going to be anywhere around them. Healy, Ringo, Cam Smith are more cornerbacks. So safety's the tough one at round 2. But I only see them going 6 and 11. Jordan Love next year is going to have a lot of pressure on him. And he's not Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers made this team. I say he made this team come very close to getting into the playoffs this year. So it's my take on the Packers offseason. They got to do something, but it's mostly defensively and let this offense learn together. A lot of young pieces there. Let them learn.
Yeah, no, I agree. We'll see how much Love is actually developed and if he was worth it. But I don't think Rodgers is back. I mean, it's like you said, it's basically been said that way, and I don't really have too much to add. Yeah,
unfortunately, it's going to be, if Rodgers isn't back, I should not expect, or Packers fans should not expect them to crest the playoffs, at least this year.
So, yeah,
just being fair. That's gonna we're gonna take our first break. It's gonna bring us to the end of the first section of this episode. When we come back, I will finish up the NFC North, which obviously the Packers are the first team up. Taylor will start his as well in the next section. Don't miss it. Part 2 of 3 of part 1 of anyway. Tune back in. Taylor, sign us off.
We'll see y'all on the flip.
All right, welcome back. Part 2 of the first part of the Magic 8-Ball series. I'm saying a lot of parts. I just got up as like section 2 instead of part 2. I had that problem at the end of
bullet
section
7
1. Yeah, subsection
right.
A4, Article 9, paragraph 14. I'm going to keep going with our Magic 8-Ball section for the NFC North. All right, let's cross the rainbow bridge of the into the land of the offseason. Let's talk about the Bears. 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 They are down to 75.6 million in cap. Still the leader after taking on DJ Moore today in this trade. Spots to fill: offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, edge, cornerback, safety. They could take a tight end. They could take a wide receiver. Did I miss anything? Mostly everything.
Yeah.
Big news came out literally 5 hours ago. By the time you get this video, it'll be several days, and you'll have already heard all of this. But the Bears traded their first overall pick to the Panthers for pick 9 overall, pick 61 overall, a 2024 first rounder, a 2025 second rounder, and DJ Moore. Do I have that right?
I'm not looking at it specifically, but that sounded correct.
I think I was about to say the second rounder is what really has me.
Yeah. Where did it go?
That's a great question. That's
Here
the
we go.
only thing. The rest of it is 100% correct. I know that. So
Yeah, so they got pick 9, pick 61, first
Yeah, I got it
round
100% right.
24,
Yep.
second round
100%.
2025. Yep.
And DJ Moore. So
And DJ Moore.
for this year, how that affects this team. Number one, they have 2 wide receivers now. 2 healthy wide receivers that are both very good in different ways. Darnell Mooney and DJ Moore. Thumbs up. My trade grade for the Bears in this is A+. They smacked it.
Yeah.
The first thing I said when this news came across the wire, I said it in our group, our dynasty group. My wild prediction, which isn't so wild, is I think they trade down again.
Yeah.
There's really nothing at 9 that you can't get at 15 or 17 that you need. And you know who needs things at 9? A lot of teams that are at 15 or 17. Packers, Commanders, Steelers at 18 or 17, Buccaneers at 19. Yeah, they probably would all at least entertain, hey, do you want this number 9 pick? Shimmy, shimmy, shake. Right?
Yeah. I mean, it would have been better for them if they, traded down to like 2 through 4 and then traded down to like 9 and then traded down again. But even still,
I think this is the other side of the coin that nobody considered is teams 2 through 4 don't have any reason to move.
yeah, because
The Texans knew they weren't taking. Now they could move up to 1 to block other teams.
exactly.
But what's the worst case scenario with the second round pick? You get your second choice,
Right. Or
not having a choice.
Well, continue with that thought. I'll double check what I was going to say.
All right, sounds great. We're fact checkers here. But realistically, those teams didn't need it. The Colts had settled behind at least Bryce Young, probably CJ Stroud as well, right? And they're like, all right, worst issue is we have to take Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. And we can still build around these guys. The interesting part here is what are the Raiders going to do now? They are sitting at 7, and I think clearly they're left with the scraps after this one.
Yeah. So real quick, what I was going to say is if the Colts traded up above the Texans and blocked them from getting Bryce Young, and now they have this franchise quarterback, and it's just like a double-ended thing where they're blocking them from getting a good quarterback, but also not allowing them to get a quarterback that's going to be a franchise quarterback in their division. It's just, that's what the Colts going up was probably within those top picks, the one that would be the most likely to do something like that.
It's true. I mean, that makes sense. But again, if you're the Texans, okay, so they take Bryce Young. We'll take CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
Oh, you want CJ Stroud we'll take Bryce Young. Like that was your worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, we have option 2. Best case scenario, we have option 1. Shake head. Are they better than Davis Mills? Yes. Can we build around them? Absolutely. Because as soon as that pick's done, guess what? The rest of your picks fall in line.
Yeah.
Also, I find it very interesting that this trade happens and the Texans signed Robert Woods about 2 hours later.
Right.
Almost like we think this first round pick is going to get traded. And instead of trying to compete with it, let's prepare for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit of a, it's odd. It's odd. I think it's smart, but I think it's odd. Anyway, back to the Bears. Bears. They now have pick 9. They have three picks at the end of the between the end of the second and the beginning of the third. They don't really have any trade assets left, but that's fine because I think their biggest trade asset is number 9. I think
Yeah.
you can, like I said, trade that down. First, I didn't, again, another one, I didn't fix the main way of retooling because I said the main way of retooling is the draft because this team is almost certainly trading the first pick. In 3 hours before we film the show, they trade the first pick. So it's almost like I'm a genius or something. Everyone knew it. This stuff. I am not afraid to say they will probably trade down again, get multiple picks, middle of this draft, middle of next draft, both doesn't matter. Now it comes down to what you want to do in free agency. This team is so many different pathways, so many different pathways. Get a wide receiver 3 in free agency. Why not? You got the money. You don't really need to draft one. I would draft probably more defensively than offensively.
Yeah, I mean, and also in free agency, there's a lot of good names that are, I mean, they're going to be expensive, but they have the money. They can get cornerbacks, safeties, linemen.
Yeah. I love the idea of them taking a shot at Javon Hargrave.
Yeah.
Who's just kind of floating out there. Clellan Ferrell, who is 25 years old. Yeah, he's a free agent from Las Vegas. Anthony Brown or Emmanuel Mosley, good veteran leadership to the secondary. Brown's hurt, so be cautious with that one. But Mosley, more veteran too. Why not sign somebody to have a veteran leadership type to train some of these? There's some cornerbacks and some safeties there. Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon. They could use some help. Give them a little bit of training. Some on the field training. I really like the idea of them avoiding. And I wrote before all of this, I had them taking a wide receiver top 3. I think they should avoid wide receivers in this draft. It's not a stacked draft, unless you trade down and take Jackson Smith or something, which you don't need to do.
Right.
You really don't. I would say take one in free agency. It's only going to cost you a little bit more money. Go defensively on the younger side. Another small idea, and this is just it's somebody who it would kill a little bit of your cap, but you'd probably get him dirt cheap. He's a Chicago native, and he would be a veteran for a wide receiver. Michael Thomas from New Orleans. He went to high school in Chicago. He has, I mean, his issue's been health the last 3 years.
Right.
But another veteran name that you can put there, DJ Moore, Michael Thomas, and the Saints, along with the Buccaneers, which I've mocked Mike Evans traded from the Buccaneers so many times, and they've said that's not going to happen. And okay, run your horses, whatever you're going to do. But both of those teams need to unload cap like yesterday.
Yeah.
And Michael Thomas's deal was already restructured. You ain't touching that one again. But he would be a valuable wide receiver, I think. Noah Brown, again, another good option for Chicago. Good run blocker, underrated run blocker. And this team loves to run. So my only prediction for this team, and it still stands, is there's going to be lots of movement. I mean, we just saw the brink of it. It's hard to tell which way this team goes. It could look so many different ways, even right now from OTAs. I really love this trade for the Bears today. I have changed their record from what was 6-11 to now 9-8. I think the trade is huge. They just have to build the defense a little bit and sign correctly. And I think that's big. And 9-8 for me is it's just outside of the playoffs, roughly right now. That could change in a month when trades and free agency happens, but who knows? Like I said, I like Javon Hargrave. Defense should improve. Offense should take another step forward. You got to sync the team, but they should be fine this year. I like 9-8, and I like the way the Bears are doing this. By the way, shouts out to the Bears. This has to be some big confidence boosting stuff for Bears fans.
No, totally. I mean, obviously we saw them change the way they planned and strategize their offense with Fields after the bye week, which we've talked many times. My only concern is, Fields is still developing, and hopefully he can develop in a similar manner to like Josh Allen with his accuracy and becoming a better thrower. And this is selfish, but as a DJ Moore owner, he's very talented. Hopefully he still has a good season, but I don't know. I'm slightly nervous about him from a fantasy perspective. I think for this team, this is amazing. But we'll have to see how that pans out in the way that they use Field and what Field has in terms of accuracy right now.
This just helps Justin Fields' fantasy value.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it hurts DJ Moore's. DJ Moore had some bad games with Sam
Right.
Darnold last year.
Yeah. Last season wasn't a great outing.
I can't see this as being, if anything, this also helps everybody, to be honest. It could help. DJ Moore is a really good, can get some space. Darnell Mooney is the speed. Justin Fields will look at two different routes and then take off.
Yeah.
If your O-line can get some help, which, knock on wood, this could be a spot at 9 where if you don't trade down, Paris Johnson, Peter Skoronski, get an offensive tackle, build something there. But a lot of different, like I said, so many different ways they could go. It's the magic of the Magic 8 Ball. You don't know where they're going right now.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll say, and this, I keep throwing out this guy's name because he is that talented, but my opinion is never to take a running back very high because you can fill a lot of different running backs in if you have a good offensive line and a good scheme, and you're going to be okay. They have Khalil Herbert. I think he's shown that he's fine. But if they are trying to build up the offense and they want to go on this generational talent of Bijan, they could snag him here at 9 now, and they just, like, Montgomery's gone. That's the reason I'm bringing this up. So I don't think they should, but that would be,
they could trade down and take him.
Yeah, they could even trade down and take him, exactly. But that would be an interesting move if they went Bijan. That offense would be roaring.
Yeah. Next team, Lions. They're up to 21.3 million in cap. Michael Brockers was a cap casualty candidate. He's already been cut. Jason Kabinda, 2.5 million, could save the team 2 million. Jonah Jackson, the guard, could save the team 3 million. I don't think they're really going to go either of those ways. I think they're kind of just going to let things settle. They have to fill defense, edge, cornerback, linebacker, defensive line. Draft pick 6, 18, 48, 55, and then their standard 4th through 7th. Yes, that means they have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. Trade assets for this team, none really worth dealing. I mean, there's no real reason to trade for other pieces. There's plenty of opportunity to improve through the draft. If you need my main way of this team retooling, it's through the draft. Take your pick. Detroit they're in one of the best positions despite narrowly missing the playoffs. They don't have a lot of free agents that are coming off. They have a very young core that's only going to get better. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams. The one thing you obviously could use on offense is a tight end. But this could easily be the top team in the NFC North. They have draft capital. They have space to add some veteran leadership, if not a top piece.
Mm-hmm.
I like all the defense, and the set of first-round picks. I like 6 and 18 being cornerback edge, cornerback linebacker. It all depends on how it breaks. But for 6, they're going to have their pick. Do you want a cornerback? Do you want a safety? Do you want Tyree Wilson?
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it if they traded that 6 back.
I don't either, because again, they don't get an extra pick in the 3rd round if you want to have an extra piece.
Yeah.
But do you want Tyree Wilson? Do you want Devin Witherspoon? Do you want Brian Branch? All of them should be available at 6. At 18, again, you're back in the Miles Murphy, the Deontay Banks, the Joey Porter. A lot of different pieces that you can use that this team could very, very much use. They have good firepower. They showed their grit, had a great season after week 7, and even defensively, they rebounded well. My prediction, Lions take cornerback at 6. I'm thinking Devin Witherspoon. I don't think Christian Gonzalez, but he could also go there. Linebacker edge at 18, Miles Murphy. Nolan Smith had a fantastic combine, an absolute monster. And then they also will probably re-sign Jamal Williams. Looks like it's going that way. keep the backfield the same. Later on in the second round, 48 or 55, take your tight end. Free agency targets: Lions go 10-7 next year, divisional champion. I could even see 11-6.
Yeah.
All depends on how the other three teams in this division fall, in my opinion. Yet the Lions look really, really good. And it's been a long time since we've said that the Lions and the Bears are on the upswing. And there's other teams that are, well, it's for real. Like usually it's one or the other, but this is flashback to some 80s and 90s stuff.
Right.
Where you have the Lions and Bears doing what you know what I mean, being the head honchos of the NFC North. So, and it looks like that could potentially be the case this year. So,
Yeah. No, they are set up very well. I would be surprised if they don't make the playoffs and even potentially make it past the first round.
I hope they do, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a good confidence boost for Jared Goff as well, who I was very not high on the first 5 weeks of last year, and he came around and I came around, and here we are. Everything is hunky dory, I guess. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
spending too much time together.
Yeah. Doing the show once a week. Last team for my section, Vikings. Last team for the NFC North. That last team for the NFC we're going to talk about. Vikings, they are currently negative $6.6 million behind under the cap. Again, 4.5 days to fix that. Eric Kendricks, Adam Thielen already released. Zadarius Smith has requested his release publicly. That would save the team $12 million and would also obviously put them positive. I am starting to think the team doesn't want to do that, but they're probably going to have to if they don't want to get rid of Dalvin Cook and or Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith is kind of shooting yourself in the foot twice because you already need help in the secondary. I think that's one of the big things now you have to look at who else is in this division, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney. Those are your opposing 6 wide receivers, 1-2 for the other 3 teams, just in division. You're going to need somebody to cover them a little bit more. Lewis Sign will be back. Again, we talked about him last week. You're going to have to trust in him if you're releasing Harrison Smith. It's a thing. You didn't get to develop him last year. It's the fact of injuries. Draft picks, they have the 23rd overall pick, the 87th overall pick, and then a 4th, a 5th, and a 7th. Why? Because they went and got TJ Hawkinson. So they gave up a lot of draft capital. Spoiler alert. Trade assets. I see Jordan Hicks not only as a cap casualty, because he has a $1.5 million dead cap to a $6.5 million cap hit for his roster, but he's also a fairly decent linebacker, and he's not crazy expensive. He's also a solid veteran that could potentially help build other linebackers. So I'm not opposed to listing him as a trade asset. Is it a small one? Yes. Will it get you a lot? No. But you could potentially save what you need for the team. So, main way of retooling for this Vikings team is a trick question. There's no way to get a large amount of cap to attack free agency. They have really 2 beneficial draft picks here. 4th, 5th, and 7th are kind of more supplemental, building the depth of the roster. I like a defensive back at 23 and a linebacker at 87, which is the 3rd round at that point. I think I said a 1st and a 2nd. It's a 1st and a 3rd. But if other than that, this is going to probably be a step back for a defense that was shaky. Offense, we know the offense is going to be pretty solid. Why? Because of Mr. Jefferson.
Have you been up my wishing tree? It's where I come to think and dream. And now I'd like to show you my wishing tree. Jam on, where we can laugh and giggle.
Okay. But Mr. Jefferson will probably be pretty good. I don't expect him to be quite as good as last year. I think he'll regress a hair. Why? He had such a great season. He was 1,800 yards almost. 1,900. He was close to the record set by Megatron. So, you let Thielen go today, which hurts. Hometown boy. Zadarius Smith might be gone. The team's kind of in dire straits this year. I don't know why there's such hesitation about Dalvin Cook. You have a perfectly fine Alexander Madison sitting there, who's been perfectly good at times. My prediction for Minnesota: draft Deontay Banks at 23, cornerback. Take him. Had a really good combine. I think he was a 4.46 40. Good speed, I think. Another option, Drew Sanders. Pick 87 will probably be defensive, much less clear because we don't know how the second round is going to go whatsoever. Mostly because we don't really know how the first round's going to go. Like every time we think we are somewhere in the ballpark, stuff switches. Yeah, I have this team also going 9-8. Uh, e best of luck to Minnesota. Honestly, 9-8 feels a little uncomfortable because if Justin Jefferson isn't quite performing as well and the defense doesn't take some sort of step forward, that was the huge problem when they lost. The only team to have like a 13 wins in a season and have a negative point differential. Like when they lost, and when they won, they barely won. So that just happened a lot. So this team was 15 to 20 points away from being 9-8 this year. So I best of luck to Minnesota. This is like the roster and cap situation purgatory. It's like you don't have any more money to improve the team. You don't really have the draft capital to improve the team. You have some good targets there, but now you have one side of the ball that's going to suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Eagles are not far off from where the Vikings are, in my estimation. Eagles have a little bit more draft capital, but that's my take of the NFC North and the Vikings. What say you about the Vikings? Then I'll let you take over. And I'm going to keep eating my Chinese food while you do that. Go ahead.
No, you made some good points. I mean, like you said, they're kind of in a limbo with their cap space and what they can do with some of the players and whatnot. So, I don't know. I mean, we've seen Osborne do well. I'm just trying to think of like without Thielen. I mean, now that they have Hawkinson, that's pretty solid there. But Osborne's like okay. He's more of a wide receiver 3 in my opinion. They did get Jalen Reagor, right? They picked him up when he hit free agent market or whatever. So they have some options, but I wouldn't say they have a great number 2 beyond Hawkinson.
Yeah, who's that Pokemon? I think I played it. I think I played it twice. But with Jalen Reagor, I mean, is this finally the opportunity he needs to see the field and have more than one catch a season?
Yeah.
It's rough. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot. The big thing for this team is what happens between now and Wednesday, in my estimation.
Right. And there have been people reaching out about Dalvin Cook, so we'll see how that pans out.
Also true. And that's going to be big for them. Dalvin Cook is 7 million. Zadarius Smith another 12. Now you're back into I can get a wide receiver, or more importantly, some defensive pieces.
Mm-hmm.
You have 2 really good receiving options in Hawkinson and Jefferson. So
yeah, they definitely need to figure out the defense
by a mile. And be solid with it. That is going to be my portion, part 1. Now I'm going to pass it on to Taylor so he can go through the AFC East and the AFC North. Taylor will now lead the classroom. Get out your rulers, your notes. Don't throw any papers at the teacher. Make sure you're sitting in your seat, paying attention. There'll be a quiz at the end.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, your substitute teacher for the day. The Bills. So they
Mr. Slave. Sorry, a little more South Park reference. Go ahead.
They are still working on their cap situation. It was negative 19. Now it's negative 17.7 mil. So they got to figure that out. I believe you've mentioned Matt Milano a couple times. He could potentially be a cap casualty. Mitch Morse, their center, maybe. I even threw Gabe Davis on here, but that doesn't really. I don't think it buys them that much. Not to mention he's a young receiver that has shown potential, so I don't think they'll let him go. And then Naheem Hines does not even have a dead cap, so he could potentially save them like almost $5 million. That being said, he obviously showed what a huge asset he was in the return game, and maybe they're figuring out some more plans for him, especially with Singletary being a free agent. Do they start using him in the running back game along with James Cook? I mean, they're pretty similar in terms of receiving backs, not necessarily size, but they're pretty close, honestly. So we'll see how that pans out. But I think Milano is definitely that's where they're going to get the most money unless they do some restructuring, which maybe they do something crazy like I guess we were talking about this pre-show, but the Dolphins did some crazy restructuring with Tyreek Hill, which I'll get into later. So yeah, they got to figure out their cap situation. Spots to fill, O-line, wide receiver, linebacker, safety. Draft picks, they have the 27th, 59th, 91st, and then a 4th, 5th, and 6th. Trade assets. I mean, unless they're going to blow things up, which they were a Super Bowl favorite coming into last season. So I don't see that they are going to trade too much here, or that they want to trade much here unless they can't figure out their cap situation and they have to. So they have that 27th pick, or maybe they use future picks, but I don't think they really have much here to trade with, or that they want to trade with, especially if they're struggling with the cap, then they're going to want to keep these picks. So that being said, main way of retooling is probably the draft. So with their 27th pick, I hate to say wide receiver, because I think that, I mean, in the grand scheme, they're actually pretty decent. They have Gabe Davis, they have Khalil Shakir, they have McKenzie, a slot receiver. So they actually have some young talent. It seems like kind of all of them are wide receiver threes beyond Stephon Diggs. So finding a wide receiver 2 would be nice at that pick, but I think that they're probably going to shore up their defense a little bit here, which I think would make sense based on what we saw last season. That was sort of their I won't call it Achilles heel, but that was the weak link in the chain that was actually pretty strong. So if they can shore up their defense, I think that really strengthens the team and gets them back on track. They may also want to find more of a bruising back, the 91st pick, maybe in the 4th round. Like I said, there's some solid value that can be found with running back. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for the Bills. I have their record at 12-5, which is, I think, 1 worse than their record this season. Thoughts?
Sounds about right. Osiris Torrance, his current ADP, the guard, his ADP is 28. I think if he's there, they have to take it. Although he shouldn't make it past the Jaguars at 24, realistically. But other than that, I mean, if Gabe Davis is on your chop block, trade him.
Yeah, I think that's a better. Yeah,
you will get I would say a good 3rd round pick for him. And then right there, you can either redraft another wide receiver. I don't think they're going to end up getting rid of Gabe Davis, just in my humble opinion.
I agree.
As for later in the draft, you're probably not going to be able to get to the Drew Sanders or the Trenton Simpson of the world. Jack Campbell will probably be a stretch. For linebacker, Deion Henley, perfectly fine. Dorian Williams has been climbing up boards. Safety Christopher Smith out of Georgia. He's been moving up under the 100 ADP. He'll probably be available there at, you said 91, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's 5'11", 195. He's only 23. So just some other draft picks for later on that we could look at. I like the idea of that. I mean, there isn't a lot to change for that team. So you hit it right on the head. I hit it right on the head. So
yeah. So, all right, moving on to the Dolphins. So before today, they were at like negative 16.6 million, and then they did this massive restructure with Tyreek Hill. What I read was essentially they are giving him a ginormous bonus, at the beginning of the season or whenever, and paying him only like a bit over $1 million throughout the year. And this bonus is, I don't remember, you were saying 18, I thought I read 24, but it's essentially taking all of his contract and just putting it into a bonus and then saving a bunch of cap space that way. So they are now at 29.9 million in terms of cap space, which is huge for them. And that I think when I first wrote this, I didn't really go back and edit it based on that, but we'll ride with it and kind of edit as we go. But so some cap casualties for them. I have Durham Smythe on here. He's a tight end for them. Every time I say that name, all I can think of is Spider-Man, the villain Smythe or whatever. Anyways, so he could save them like what do I have here? 2.5 million. They have a handful of other players. I put Connor Williams on here, but I have him as a question mark. I mean, he could save them like somewhere in the realm of I have 3, but I think I was looking at some different numbers. Yeah, I think it's more like 5-ish. But I mean, he's their center, so that's not ideal. And then they have a handful of defensive players that could save them anywhere from like 1 to 3 million each. So they could make some more space. I don't think they need to now. So this was all kind of before they made that move. So their needs: offensive line, cornerback, tight end, running back. I would imagine that McDaniel wants to, he loves Mostert and Wilson coming from the San Francisco scheme. So I would imagine he wants them back. We'll see how that pans out. But now they have the cap space to do that. So their picks are 51st, 77th, 84th, and then a 6th and a 7th. I don't think we actually said this, but the numbers, when we're saying actual number picks, that's 1st through 3rd. And then after that, we're just saying the round. So
I was hoping they'd catch on.
Yeah.
There's no
but
81st round pick. This ain't the MLB draft.
Yeah, figured I'd just clarify. Trade assets. I mean, they made obviously the huge move for Tyreek Hill, and now they're just trying to build the team around him and Tua. I don't think that they really have much that they want to trade away because they're trying to build a team that, everybody wants to win the Super Bowl, obviously. So I don't know what they would get rid of really. I did put potentially Byron Jones, which he's a cornerback for them, and that could save them a ton of money. His base salary or his cap hit total is like 18 million, base salary 13.5. So depending on how they structure that trade, that could save them some more money. But again, that was before they opened up all this cap space. So I don't see them really trading anybody. But
They cut Jones already.
They cut him.
They're planned to release him on March 15th. 13.6 million. It's $10 million cap hit in 2024. However, saves the team 13 million. So your 29.9 goes up to 42.
Damn. Okay. Yeah, I mean, and the reason I put that there is this is a pretty deep cornerback class, so they could snag somebody. I mean, it's not going to be like a Gonzalez or anybody, but they could grab somebody 51st, 77th. Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense for them. So main way of retooling, I mean, now that they have cap space, they can go after people in free agency. I had originally put mainly the draft, but now they have that cap space. They can go after the free agents, not hard, but pretty decently. I mean, like I said, they're going to probably go after Mostert and Wilson. They might be able to find another cornerback. I don't know if they'll find a tight end that they like. They might be able to get some O-line. But in the draft, with that 51st pick, like I was mentioning before, this was the team that I was imagining might be able to snag somebody like Musgrave or Washington. And I mean, beyond Gesicki, who is now a free agent, right? Yeah, they don't have anybody other than Smythe, which he's just a tight end on the team. He's nothing special. No offense, Smythe. So that could be a move for them at 51st, especially if they grab other pieces in free agency. And then I have their record at 11-6, which, what did they finish? 10-7, I believe.
I mean, that's pending a healthy Tua.
Yes, that is a
Gotta-
huge
That's a
thing.
huge thing to say because he's
Yeah.
missed games.
They actually finished 9-8. Yeah, I mean, it's good they have more cap space because I wasn't sure what they were going to do about a backup quarterback. They need a solid backup quarterback with Tua's questionable health concerns. Like Teddy makes a lot of sense because he's been there, and unfortunately he also got hurt. If he's healthy when Tua's out, he can fill in fine. That being said, I think that they should find somebody that actually matches Tua's game for them. Like, I don't know, maybe I don't want to say Huntley because I don't think he's going to go anywhere. But anyways, somebody else that matches the way that Tua plays a little more closely than Teddy does.
That's fair. That's fair. 11-6 is ambitious for this team. I think I'm gonna say that, but
Yeah.
it's fair. I mean, do you have at 11-6? I'm assuming you have them as at least a wild card team.
Yeah, and I'm also imagining that I realize I don't want to put this on Tua, but I'm imagining him being healthy the whole season. We'll see how that pans
I hope
out.
so.
Yeah, I would
hope
love that
so.
for him, obviously.
So, yeah, well done, well done. I think we're gonna take our final break here. We got 6 teams left. Right.
Right where we want to be.
Just about. Yeah, that'll work. Hey, we'll see you in a couple minutes, okay, guys? Don't take it too hard. I know you'll miss us. We'll miss you too. We'll come right back, okay?
We'll see you on the flip.
In the video, when I edit this, it's literally going to be like 6 seconds. So really not.
You can wait. You can wait.
You can wait. It'll be all right. Taylor.
We'll see y'all on the flip.
Taylor. There you go. All right, welcome back. Was that a hard 6 seconds? Did you guys have a rough time? Are you okay? We need to contact 911. No? Okay. Taylor is going to keep going with the second of 4 parts of the Magic 8 Ball series. He is in the middle of the AFC East. Let's rejoin him in his natural habitat.
All right, now we get to talk about my boys, the Patriots. They just opened up some more space. They went from 26.8 mil to 32.6. So they're still looking pretty good there. They don't really need to cut anybody in terms of cap casualties. There are plenty of people that would save them some money. Judon would save them like 7 million. I hate that. Please don't. Hunter Henry would save them like 10 million. I like Henry as a player. He was pretty decent last season. So I don't really want to see that, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. They could figure something out if they wanted to. I mean, they have their second pick at 46. They could grab a tight end there, so that's not the worst thing. And then there's a couple other players that would save them. I don't know, anywhere from like 1 to 4 million. But like I said, they have a decent amount of cap space. They don't need to really do that. So let's see. Yeah, spots to fill: offensive tackle, wide receiver, defensive back, maybe even linebacker. But I don't think that's a huge need. Draft picks, they have the 14th, 46th, 76th, and then they have 3/4, 4 sixth round picks, and a 7th. So they have a good amount of picks. I mean, they love to trade back and just acquire more dart throws. That's kind of their MO. They don't like to pay guys, although they obviously went out and paid decent money to Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry last offseason. 2 off seasons ago. Anyways, trade assets, like I said, they love to trade back, so they may do that with some of their picks. I personally would like it if they didn't trade back that 14th pick, because they do need a good wide receiver 1, and I think that they could snag somebody like Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I would love that for them. Going back to their tight ends, I don't know what they could get for Jonnu, but he hasn't really, this experiment of going back to the 2 tight end set of the days of Gronk and Aaron Hernandez has just not panned out. I think that they should potentially trade away Jonnu if they could. I like him as a player, and he actually had some flashes with what was it, the Titans, but he just really hasn't done that for the Pats. And maybe they're using him differently. I mean, I'm sure he's a fine blocker. They kind of use him as a bit of a gadget guy, and he is a very talented, skilled player, but I just don't think he's doing enough for them that it's warranted the 17 million that he's gonna have for a cap pick next season. But yeah, beyond that, they don't really need to trade too many other people. Like I said, they have decent cap space and they have good draft picks. So I think that their main way of retooling here is using that money to potentially they like to go after some of the more veteran wide receivers. I would love that, since they have an unfortunate track record of not drafting wide receivers well. If they want to lean into that, I'm fine with that. Granted, I don't know that they're going to pay enough to get a DeAndre Hopkins. That would be incredible if they did.
Hopkins has said he is open to a restructured contract for a lesser deal, for lesser money on the right team.
Well, come on over. That would be amazing, but we'll see how that pans out. I would also love if they could get Jacoby back. I think he is a great wide receiver too, and he knows the system, which is, as we've said before, a complex offensive system. So having somebody with that knowledge to be your wide receiver, like a very solid wide receiver too, would be incredible. That being said, if they don't, I like Kendrick Bourne, and he's shown that he can handle it when he is needed. So I wouldn't hate it if they just went with him, as I mean, they have the young Tyquan Thornton, who's kind of their speed guy, and then they also have Parker for another year. Whether or not he's a cap casualty, that's a potential. He does not have any dead cap, so they could just straight up drop him for saving $6 million. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see Jacoby back, but we'll see if that pans out. I mean, we'll see who else hits the free agent market, but right now it's not the strongest wide receiver free agent market. And then also it's not a very deep wide receiver drafting class. At the top, there's some good talent, but once you get out of the top 10-ish, it's kind of not. So yeah, like I said, at pick 14, I would love it if they could snag a Njigba. I mean, if Quentin's there, maybe. He's got the prototypical size.
Would you like to kill 2 birds with 1 stone? Trade 14 to the Steelers. I know that's going to hurt. Trade 14 to the Steelers at 17. Take up a 4th round pick with it. Draft Jackson there. The Steelers need an offensive tackle.
I mean, yeah, if they could pull that off.
Although I think the first thing they would probably rather do is just draft the tackle themselves. But
right. Yeah, they do need a tackle, as I said, but yeah, I'm personally higher on Njigba than Quentin Johnston.
Yeah.
So I would rather see him go to the Pats. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Did you tell what's your prediction for a record here? Because I think it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I have not gotten to the record yet. I have them at 11-6, which is also it's ambitious, much like the Dolphins. I mean, it's the same record as the
What's that
Dolphins.
new phone commercial for T-Mobile? Well. Like, I don't think that's a I think 11-6 is very realistic.
I'm
You
really
have all four
leaning
teams in the AFC
into.
East at above 500. That's all I
I
tell you.
do. I do. I mean, they almost pulled it off last season. Um,
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm really leaning into the Mac Jones, Bill O'Brien. I mean, I guess they never actually played together, but they did sort of.
Gelling, like
Yeah,
them gelling.
yeah.
Okay.
So, and then I mean, if they don't go in Jigba, they trade back or they take somebody else at 14. Maybe if they go like you said, a tackle or a defensive back at 46, they could throw a dart at like Butte. That wouldn't be terrible. Um, or if they have gotten rid of their tight ends, they could go after a tight end at 46.
I like them rather taking something who's not Boutte, something along the lines of like a I don't know, an A.T. Perry or a Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah, I mean, Hyatt has some very good numbers. He's just like people aren't very high on him, but he actually grades decently just from athleticism and production wise. So yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. Did you have anything else?
No,
Or
I mean, uh, this is kind of a team that has a lot of different directions, but not a lot of directions all at the same time. So I'll let you
right.
carry on.
Yeah, no, it's kind of not a bad spot for them to be in because they have a decent core. So the Jets went from -2 million to negative 200K. So they're break even basically. um I'm just gonna pull up their cap numbers.
Braxton Berrios was cut this morning.
Okay. So yeah, he was on my list to save them money. So that saves them like 5 million. I also have Lawson on here. His dead cap is only 333,000.
For a
So
$15 million contract.
exactly. So that saves them a ton. Basically saves them $15 million, a little over $15 million. And then I also have Corey Davis. He has again under 1,666,000 dead cap, and he's currently costing them 11 million. So I would imagine he, unless he gets restructured, goes somewhere or whatever. Jordan Whitehead, that could save them 8 million or 7 million. They have a lot of options here in terms of cutting people to get them over this negative 200K. Positional needs, offensive line, safety, quarterback. They have some decent picks. They have 13, 43, 74th, and then a 4th round, 5th round, and a 6th round. I mean, I'm already laughing at it. I was gonna say you're gonna laugh at me, viewers, listeners are gonna laugh at me, but trade asset, Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people maybe might still be tantalized by what they had seen prior to last season.
Hey,
I
let's
doubt it.
just take the entire future out of
I
the
mean,
franchise and throw it in the trash there, guys.
yeah, they traded Sam Darnold, so um, I mean, he obviously showed a lot better. Yeah, I literally have here, but who wants him? So I would imagine they continue to try and develop him and break him of some of these bad habits and mature him and hold him accountable. They could potentially trade Elijah Moore just because he simply did not want to be there. Whether or not things change, we'll see. I don't know if he's changed his tune, but they may just try to cut ways with him just because it's not working out. They obviously have picks to work with to trade with. The biggest question here is whether they can acquire a veteran quarterback. They're not going to go after a young quarterback. They're not going to trade up for a quarterback. That just makes no sense. The fact that they have Zach Wilson, um, they have a team that could potentially I don't want to say win the Super Bowl now, but they should. They are borderline making the playoffs if they get Aaron Rodgers. They have
Right.
great, they have Garrett Wilson, they have Breece Hall. They have a very good offensive weapons. They have a good defense. If they get Aaron Rodgers, granted they may lose some of these picks, but once they get Aaron Rodgers, then they can kind of sort of fill in these holes in the draft. Now they obviously need to figure out their cap space if they're going to get Aaron Rodgers. Maybe if they do get Aaron Rodgers, they give away a bunch of picks. Maybe the Packers take on a lot of the cap from Aaron Rodgers. We'll see.
It'll be after the new league year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that probably means that they can go over the cap.
Mm-hmm. And it also probably means that they're probably going to get rid of some of the names I mentioned.
100%.
Yeah. So yeah, they got to get in a better cap space. They got to figure out their quarterback situation, and then they can fill in these holes with whatever they have left, whether it's free agent money or whatever draft picks they have left. Assuming, I don't know if it's a good assumption because I would imagine they'd have to give up some of these draft picks, but let's say they have that 13th pick and they trade away Moore, or Moore is no longer with them. They're going to need a wide receiver too. They still have Denzel Mims on the roster.
Yep.
He hasn't really done much for them. Tight end wise, I feel like they're fine. People say they need a tight end, but they have Conklin, they have Uzama. I think those are perfectly passable tight ends
100%.
for, like especially for this year. So I don't think they need to go after a tight end. I mean, I bring that up because they have that 43rd pick, and that could be a good spot for a tight end, but I don't think they're going to part ways with these guys. They really need to shore up the safety here and some defensive holes, especially on the offensive line, which is only going to help with how they utilize Breece Hall. And then I have the record at 10-7, which you alluded to as everybody being over 500. But they did almost all do it last season.
It is true. It is true. Elijah Moore, I mean, there's a lot of wide receiver movement going on here. Moore probably can't afford to go anywhere. If they're cutting
Yeah.
Corey Davis, I don't know if they're cutting Corey Davis. Braxton Berrios seems to kind of almost put the nail in that coffin, which is odd. But there's a lot of different ways. I think their big thing is find an offensive lineman, find somebody to be on the defensive side who can rush a little bit, replace Carl Lawson or restructure his deal if it hasn't been done already.
Mhm.
And then probably at this point go out and get Rodgers and then run it back. Because I think 10-7 is a pretty good, I think that's a good record for them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they obviously just need to figure out that quarterback situation. I mean, if they don't get Rodgers and they have to go like
Jimmy G.
It's not a bad spot for them to be in, but then they definitely need to get a solid wide receiver to really like get this offense in a good spot. I don't think Garrett Wilson alone is going to be able to cut it. Well, maybe they keep Corey Davis.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Onward.
Yep. Moving on to the AFC North.
We got about 19. It's about 22 minutes.
Yeah. So kick it off with the Bengals. They went from 33.3 million to 35.5. They don't really need to cut people, but there are some options. Pulling up their numbers again. Reader would save them 11 million. DJ Reader. Trey Hendrickson would save them 10 million. Joe Mixon would save them almost 7 million. Tyler Boyd would save them almost 9 million. So they could even open up a lot more space than they already have. They're sitting in a good spot. They have a lot of, I mean, this is kind of the recipe, right? You have the quarterback on the rookie deal. You have wide receivers on the rookie deal. that's the recipe really to get far right now, is capitalize on that cheap contracts with these highly talented players, and fill in with some vets at some strong positions, and just figure out how to make it work. I mean, unless you're Patrick Mahomes, who can just play with anybody. Spots they need to fill: DB, offensive tackle, tight end. Hayden Hurst is a free agent. Draft picks: 28th, 60th, 92nd, a 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round pick. So they have a pick every round. Or maybe is the 60th?
It's the same.
Yeah,
No, you're
yeah.
right. It's
Yep.
one every round.
Trade assets. T. Higgins has been thrown around as a trade asset. I don't see it happening.
No.
They're too. They love the guy. He's a solid 1B. He's more than a wide receiver 2. They could potentially trade Joe Mixon if they somehow, maybe they eat some of his cap or something for somebody. I doubt it. Sorry, the next guy, Tyler Boyd, I doubt that they trade him, that they find a suitor for him. I think that his contract is not something that somebody's going to want for him where he's currently at in his career. They obviously have the 28th pick and the 60th, maybe future rounds, but I don't know how much they really will need to trade. They have, like I said, a lot of good young talent that's not costing them a lot. So they just kind of need to fill in the holes here. And I think that's where they're mainly going to do their retooling, is in the draft here. That 28th pick could be a tight end. Maybe they wait till 60th and get somebody better value. I don't think that any of the guys that we like, the top 3, Myers, Kincaid, Musgrave, Washington. I don't think that they'll make it to 60. So maybe they snag somebody at 28. We'll see. But they do need to kind of really shore up their defensive back situation. And then, yeah, like I said, another spot to fill was offensive tackle, but I think that DB is where they should go earlier in the draft than going an offensive tackle. And then I have their record at 13-4, which is basically where they finished last season, excluding obviously the one game that didn't happen.
Right. I don't disagree with all of it. I don't disagree with any of it, I guess.
It's an easy team. They're in a good spot.
Yeah, they really are. This is a team that should be able to run it back this year, and if they're smart with their money now, they can do it again next year. So
Right.
onwards and upwards for us,
Yeah.
because that's pretty copy paste. I like that.
Yeah, the only thing they'll need to figure out is if Joe Mixon does part ways. Samaje Perine, I think, is a free agent, so they'll need to figure out their running back situation, which maybe that's what they do in a trade, or maybe they find something at that 92nd pick or something. I don't know, maybe Jahmyr Gibbs falls to 60. I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt that.
Moving to the Ravens, they went from negative 9.8 million to negative 2.2, so they're looking better, but they still need to open up some more space. Pulling up their numbers. Kevin Zeitler.
Yep.
That would save them like 7-ish, 6.5 million. Calais Campbell, that would save them another 7-ish, actually exactly 7 million. Gus Edwards saves them like 4 million. Devin Duvernay saves them almost a little over 4 million. Granted, they do need wide receivers, so I don't know if they'll do that. Yeah, so spots to fill: wide receiver, cornerback, edge, linebacker. They have the 22nd, 86th, a 4th, 5th, and a 6th round. So their first 2 picks, not too shabby. In terms of trade assets, I mean, obviously they have talent, but getting rid of them does not really help them unless they're going into a rebuild, which doesn't, I guess if you think that Lamar is not coming back after this year, then maybe they do kind of need to go into a
I
rebuild.
I think he's
Yeah.
going to be pissed they didn't pay him, and he's going to go find it elsewhere.
Potentially. So maybe they do start trading things away and open up cap space and get some draft picks, which is a possibility. But let's say they don't and they try to make a run for it this season. They're probably going to keep a lot of the guys they have. I doubt that they'll trade their picks because they probably want to use them to fill in some of these gaps here, especially wide receiver. So main way of retooling, assuming all of that, would be the draft at pick 22. They should probably go DB. I don't have
Yeah.
them going wide receiver, and I mean they could also go edge there, but I think I like DB better. One of the reasons, even though they need wide receiver, I don't have them going wide receiver is the team was very unhealthy last year. A lot of injuries. They did not have everybody on the field at the same time, including Lamar Jackson. So if they get Bateman, Duvernay, Andrews, Dobbins, Lamar, if they get them all healthy, they are in a much better spot. They finished 10-7. They did not feel like a team that should have finished 10-7 the way that we saw them play sometimes last year, especially with the injuries. I have them finishing 11-6, which is that's only one game better, but everybody healthy. Maybe things don't go their way that they did last season. I think that's not a bad spot for them to finish, and I think that they could get by without drafting that like a high-end wide receiver at 22.
Yeah. I mean, the team has always been defensively prone. The one thing that Lamar does absolutely need is another wide receiver besides just Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
So it's got to come from somewhere. It ain't going to come from free agency.
Right. I have the 86 pick, some dart throw. I mean, it's either as good as or maybe slightly better than Duvernay.
Well, I see at 22, you're almost assured you're going to have either Zay Flowers or
Josh Downs, maybe.
Downs is more of a second. It looks like
Yeah.
potentially second round wide receiver. I'd see. There's probably going to be somebody available at 22.
Yeah, for sure.
The Texans signing Robert Woods almost indicates to me that they're not going to go immediately to a wide receiver. So that leads me to believe Quentin Johnston's going to fall closer towards the 20th overall pick, which is just going to ensure there's somebody there at 22. If it's Jordan Addison or JSN, I'm taking him.
Oh yeah, yeah. For
If it's
sure.
Quentin Johnston, I'm taking him. So I think they're keeping their doors open to see how the draft falls. But that's
Exactly.
just the Ravens. So
yeah, no. If there's, like you said, if there's somebody of that caliber at 22, by all means. Like I've said this a couple of times, it's a decent DB class. So if you can wait on that, that's fine.
I
Moving on.
think the Ravens have a better chance of going 11-6 than the Patriots do. Just saying.
Oh, come on. Yeah, I would agree. Lamar, obviously the more talented, more experienced quarterback. Not to mention Andrews is a stud. Steelers. Their current cap is up to 11 million. They were at negative 4.8, so that's good news there. They're another team that has the young guys on good contracts, so they're actually decent. That being said, some cap casualties. Cameron Hayward would save them 10 million. Miles Jack would save them 8 million. James Daniels would save them like 6 million. Mitchell Trubisky would save them like 8 million. And then they have a couple other guys, 2 cornerbacks, which doesn't really make sense for them, but
Right.
Levi
Skip
Wallace.
them. They're not
Skip
going
'em.
anywhere. They're
Yeah,
not going anywhere. Not for what that would save them. That would
exactly.
make sense. If Trubisky's not cut, they're not thinking about taking them off.
Yeah. Spots they need to fill: offensive line. They do need some cornerback help. Defensive line, linebacker. They have the 17th, 32nd, 49th, 80th, 4th, and 2 7ths. So they're actually looking pretty good at the top of the draft here. trade assets, I don't see them getting rid of any of their high-end veterans. Like I said,
Agreed.
they're in a good spot now with cap. They have the young, talented contracts, like young, cheap, talented players on good contracts, whatever. So I think they're in a good spot there. They could trade away some picks, but I don't think they should. I think they're in a good spot. They just need to use those picks to fill in the holes here. So looking at offensive line or maybe CB at 17, probably not CB.
Joey Porter.
Yeah, I mean,
His
that would
his dad played, I believe, played or coached for the Steelers.
that does ring a bell.
If he's
Yeah.
available there at 17, I'm pretty certain he'd probably be going to the Steelers.
Yeah. Yeah,
32 and at 32, you have your choice of a couple other tackles still.
exactly. And I think that, yeah, I mean, like I said, O-line or CB are their top things here. I mean, Najee is such a huge part of their offense. He gets so much usage that if they can make the offensive line better for him, that's only going to strengthen their offense, especially with a quarterback that is young and doesn't throw the ball a ton. They're going to need to be able to run the ball well. So, and not only obviously protect their quarterback. And then, yeah, like I said, they have the 32nd and 49th, so they could get, I mean, there's a lot of solid players there, whether it's offensive line, whether it's a defensive line, linebacker. They have a solid top end of the draft here to really fill in these holes. And then I have them at 10 and 7. They finished 9 and 8 last season. I don't know. Do you think they do better than 10 and 7?
I don't know, but all 8 of your teams have above 500 records, and something ain't working. I just want to let you know that. And honestly, out of mine, I think 6 out of my 8 were also above 500, and one of the other ones that wasn't was 8 and 9.
Yeah.
It wasn't exactly great, but
I mean, the
they should
Jets
take a
don't
step
get a
forward.
good quarterback. They're not going over 500.
Yeah, there's a lot of what ifs to
Yeah.
these, and that's fair. I think they take a tiny step forward. 10 and 7 sounds realistic. Trubisky. Nope, bye. Get out of here. Pickett found a pretty good stride at the end of the year, limiting turnovers, becoming more of a game manager, which, like I've said so many times before, game manager first and start kind of reaching into an archetype, so to speak.
Yeah.
Whether it's a little bit of a scrambler, whether it's, a deep passer, pocket, or whatever the heck it is. And for the 2 touchdowns, the 250, 2 touchdowns, 250, limit your interceptions, limit your turnovers, and start building that way.
Yeah.
If he can do that, then this team, I think, should be 10 and 7, and that's perfectly fine. I don't know where in this world scenario for all these teams who's making the playoffs and who's not. It'll be interesting to see.
Right.
But I like that 10 and I like at 10 and 7. I like them at least competing for one of the wild card spots.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah.
Again.
We'll finish it off with the Browns, who are in a horrendous situation. They have gone from negative 17.7 million to negative 13.5.
You mean Deshaun Watson wasn't the savior for the franchise?
Oh my God, that contract is so bad. Yeah, not to mention he did not play well at the end of last season. Granted, he was rusty from not playing for over a year and came in over halfway through the season. I don't have high hopes for this team. I mean, I'll spoiler alert, I do have them at 9 and 8, and I am very much leaning on the fact that Deshaun Watson.
sex.
Yeah, I'm leaning on the fact that he likes sex. No, leaning on the fact that he is a talented player, and I think he'll figure it out. But I don't know at like what cost. Like, is Amari Cooper not the fantasy value that we want because Watson is scrambling more, running more? I don't know what it means for this team, but we'll keep with the format here. Cap casualties, not a lot of options for the team. Honestly, Amari Cooper is an option. That would save them like 8 million. His cap hit is 23 million, over 23.7. Dead cap is 15. So that could save them some money, but they need that number one wide receiver, so I don't see that happening. They're not going to get rid of Nick Chubb, who would save them $4 million. There's just not a lot here for them to.
Did they cut Deshaun Watson? He's a $54.9 million cap hit. His dead cap is only $219 million.
Yeah, Jesus.
Just so you're aware, the entire cap for the teams on top 51 for the teams is 251 million.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's great.
It's perfect.
So yeah, they're not in a great spot. They can't really open up. They need to restructure people.
Donovan Peoples-Jones, Harrison Bryant, Jedrick Wills. I mean, you're looking at a lot of players you probably don't want to cut. Anthony
Exactly.
Schwartz. I mean, and that's just to get you to 0. That's not even to give you cap. So
Yeah, I don't even know if we would get them to 0, but yeah, exactly. There's not a lot here that they need to restructure people, or do some more trading, which just means that you're prolonging this rebuild if it is a rebuild. Spots they need to fill, defensive tackle, wide receiver, linebacker. Their picks are 42nd, 98th, 2 4ths, 2 5ths, a 6th, and a 7th. I do have Myles Garrett as a potential trade candidate. I don't.
anything to give you cap.
Yeah, exactly. Like they kind of have to if they're not able to restructure. I also have Harrison Bryant or Njoku. I don't think they would trade both of them. I mean, Njoku cap hit is 8 million. Bryant is 3 million. So if they were, they would probably keep Bryant and trade Njoku, which Njoku is a very good trade value for.
He'll have value.
Yeah. So yeah, how do they retool? I don't know because they don't. Yeah, exactly. If they can restructure Watson, which I don't see how the hell they do this, but that would be their biggest starting point, and that would do a lot for them. Like I said, they need to restructure people. They probably, if they can't, they need to trade some people and open up some cap space. They don't have a lot of options here. This team is kind of backed into a corner because of this Watson deal. Yeah, I mean, I literally have restructuring Watson would be ideal. LOL, facepalm. So if they ride things out as they currently are and figure out something in terms of cap space, then they are looking at the draft as their main way of retooling. And they have okay picks, but yeah, things are pretty bleak right now in Cleveland. At pick 42, they would probably go tackle. I think.
I mean, they have to just the first thing it's like 72 hours. They need to get below.
Exactly.
They have 13 more million cut. I mean, other than the Bucks and the Saints, the greatest way to get below 0 because there's just you give up main pieces to do it, and it sucks. But it's probably going to have to get done.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, beyond the 42nd pick, they need to fill some more defense and maybe take a stab at a wide receiver. They're honestly, they're not in a terrible spot at wide receiver with Amari Cooper and Peoples-Jones, but
assuming they don't cut him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, things are in rough shape for the Browns, and like I said, I have them at a 9-8 record, and if they keep Cooper, I'm really leaning on the fact that Watson is just kind of a playmaker. But I could totally
I don't see any other way other than Nick Chubb.
Right.
Which, by the way, Nick Chubb could save the team $6 million.
Yep. But I could totally see this team not breaking 500 because they're just in such an awful situation.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. I would say real quick, we got about 2 minutes, a little under 2 minutes. The team out of the ones we talked about today that has the best chance to actually retool, I gotta say the Lions. I just think that it's very easy. One side of the ball, you need 5 solid players probably. And they have enough draft. They have 4 draft picks in the first 2 rounds. They have cap space.
Yeah.
I like the Lions in this they're my team that is most likely to successfully rebuild. So, your team,
I mean,
the Patriots.
no, I was gonna say the Bengals. I mean, I really harped on the
Well,
fact
they got to
that
run it back.
Yeah,
They're running it back. That's fair.
Yeah, they have I guess the reason I say them is I think they have a solid shot at the Super Bowl next year, just because they are in such a great spot.
Makes sense. I don't disagree. They're a great team. Great quarterback is effective. If they can keep Joe Mixon and then keep their cap situation where they need it to be, it's going to be another good season. That is going to do it for part one. I guess we'll say part 1 and 2. The entire episode is part 1 of 2, but the entire episode is part 1 and 2 of the Magic 8-Ball series. Part 3 and 4, which will be the South and the West, both NFC and AFC South and West. That will be out next week. Me and Taylor are going to do the other 8 teams. 8?
8
9. One of these has 9, isn't it? There's 32. I don't know. It is. You're right. Okay. Yeah, 8 each. You're right. Math is not mathing that way. Yeah, so we'll be back with another 8 next week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. This is just a new concept of how these teams could potentially rebuild, sculpting their rebuild for the season. Not all of them are rebuilding, but re-rostering, I guess. So, but for Derek at Fantasy Flyer, this man is Taylor. Taylor, give him your final words.
Peace out, y'all.
Oh, it's his catchphrase. I'm gonna make a T-shirt for that. Listen to some Bob Barker. You guys have a good one. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Like and share the
Bob
video.
Barker reminding you, help
Subscribe to the
control
channel.
population
Subscribe on Facebook,
and
whatever that's called.
stay muted.
See you next week.
Goodbye, everybody.